Once both houses of state parliament have passed legislation, it goes to the governor for royal assent, usually a mere formality. In Western Australia, the Clerk of the Parliaments, the senior-most parliamentary servant, arranges for this to occur. In 2001, Labor won office in Western Australia, and for the first time the Conservative parties were outnumbered in the Legislative Council. It had 34 members, and between them, the Labor Party, the Greens and the Democrats held 18 seats. The government brought forward legislation to repeal the Electoral Act and replace the entire electoral system. However, legislation amending the Electoral Act required an absolute majority of each House of Parliament. In the Legislative Council, that meant 18 votes, half the House plus one. The legislation was passed 17 votes to 16 because the President of the Legislative Council does not usually have a substantive vote. The Labor government considered the law had been properly passed because it repealed the previous act instead of amending it, and because the previous Parliament couldn't set rules to bind the present Parliament. Both were equally democratically elected. The Clerk of the Parliaments, Lawrence Marquet, went to the Supreme Court seeking a declaration as to whether it would be lawful for him to present this bill to the governor for assent. They declared it would not be lawful because an absolute majority had not been achieved. The High Court refused the government's appeal, finding first that the requirements for amending the legislation also applied to repealing it. They also found that Section 8 of the Australia Acts 1986 confirmed that state parliaments could make rules about how their parliament's constitution could be changed. The majority judges said the repeal bill and the amendment bill were respectively to do away with and then provide an alternative structure for the constitution of the two houses of the Western Australian Parliament. The repeal bill was for a law respecting the constitution of the Parliament of Western Australia. This meant that the earlier parliamentary decision could bind the later Parliament, so it would have been unlawful for the clerk to present the bills to the governor. From this case, we learn that in limited circumstances, a state parliament can pass laws binding later parliaments, and it is proper for a parliamentary clerk to seek the court's declaration as to whether an act has been properly passed.